You could say the Gospel of John is about all sorts of things, but primarily the Gospel of John is about friendship, and we see in the Gospel of John this friendship between the beloved disciple and Jesus, particularly the beloved disciple and Jesus, but also I'd say Mary Magdalene and Jesus, and some of the other disciples and apostles and Jesus. And one of the things that John's Gospel can do for the reader, for you, is to discover yourself as the beloved disciple. So the beloved disciple isn't somebody else; it's me, it's you, and in that way, I think, I think Jesus opens his heart to you, and Jesus invites us to share his life and his love, and to come to know him, not only as, or even perhaps primarily as, Lord or God, but first and foremost as friend.
It's so hard for me to love. It really is. And I run up against it almost every day here in community. And I find it hard to love because I forget my own belovedness. And if I remembered that, this was something that I could bring into the forefront of my consciousness, my love for other people, which is there, would flow so much more freely. But it does go back to a level of self-rejection. Self-rejection happens to us when we forget that we were loved before we received any human love. We were loved before we came into our human existence. That there is a love primary to and before all other loves, all human loves that we ever experienced. And we have to reclaim that knowledge of our belovedness that is not dependent on human approval or human love.
One of the words which we brothers use very frequently is invitation. And we're always asking ourselves, so what's the invitation here? Believing that life by nature is an invitation, and it's God's invitation to participate in life, in God's life. I think certainly in a monastery, and it's probably true in your own life, a huge percentage of the day is tedious. We're not climbing the spiritual mountains, we're washing the dishes, petting the dog, cutting the grass, washing the clothes, getting from point A to point B. Most of life is that. So I would say it's in those contexts, which may not be completely apparent, what is this to be about, that we should be asking the question, what's the invitation here? What is the invitation in this moment? It may be you're passing by people on the street, you're walking, or you're on a bus or a subway, you're in commuter traffic, and you're seeing people sitting beside you, you're seeing people through car windows. What are you seeing? Can you pray blessing on them? Can you radiate God's light and life and love onto their being? We're on this perpetual mission field that God is with us always. And we would not want to miss a moment of life if God is really present to us in the face and form of Jesus. Jesus is going to be really present to us in every passing moment. What is the invitation now?
One of the things that inhibits adults at so many different levels is the misguided sense that we have to be serious all the time. And we really need to try to recapture our playfulness. I think that play is so close to pray. They just go hand in hand. And so when you approach prayer, approach it seriously, but not with seriousness. Know that God wants to play with you. That playfulness is all around. God has a really strong sense of humor.
I once used this for a retreat, and I asked people to reflect on this, and I asked them to I asked them what they thought various parts of it meant. And afterwards, one of the people came up to me and said when they looked at John's hand here, it just seemed that he was tickling Jesus. Which probably isn't what the iconographer had in mind. And yet there's something really kind of delightful about that image of John being so close to Jesus, both emotionally and physically, that he can tickle Jesus. I mean, you don't, or you probably shouldn't, tickle people that you don't know. boundaries. But here John is so close to Jesus that he could potentially be tickling him. I don't think that's what John is doing here, but it's kind of fun to imagine that. I think what John is doing here is he's pointing. So he's pointing to this image of love, and in itself is an image of love. John reclining on the breast of Jesus, and in such a way that perhaps John can hear the heartbeat of Jesus here, and so that's that's if you were going to pray with this icon, that's another way that you could pray with this icon, is simply to see if you can quiet yourself down so much that you can hear your heartbeat, and just become aware of your heartbeat, and in a sense, by becoming aware of your heartbeat, becoming aware of God's heartbeat, and God's heart beating in love for you.